Hey everyone, welcome to the next edition of Ask a Realtor. I'm Doug Pryor with JP and Associates Realtors here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And this is a forum where I just address some questions that I get from clients, from potential clients, family, friends, whatever, being a realtor in the industry. I get these questions all the time, so I thought I would develop a video forum where I could share them with other people, and hopefully you find it beneficial. So today and by the way, I have some music playing in the background just for effect or whatever. Usually I do jazz, but today I thought I would throw in some Mozart for you, for your enjoyment. My wife and I have been recently watching the new series, or I don't know if it's new, they've got a few seasons, but Mozart in the Jungle on Amazon Prime, and we find that series very entertaining, so I thought I'd give a little tribute to Mozart today, so that's what you hear playing in the background. So today's topic, we're going to talk about new builds. Should I buy a new construction home? Certainly in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's a lot of new construction going on, a lot of areas that are under development by builders, and so the question is, should I buy that or buy an existing home? And the first thing I think maybe you should consider, and certainly there's an appeal to buying a new home. You're the first owner, you get to make it your own, you get to deal with it, putting your personal touches on it without having to redo what somebody else, their vision has been for the property. So that's certainly an appeal. Some things you should consider, though, when making that decision. First of all and foremost, if you walk into a builder's show home, model home, or their offices or whatever, they're typically going to try to get you to sign a contract directly with them and be unrepresented. And I would highly, highly recommend that you actually use an agent to represent you in the transaction. Now they're going to probably offer you some, discounts or some additional features or things, choices or whatever upgrades that, because, their logic is they're not paying the realtor's fee, so they're going to give you that benefit. However, these are performance-based contracts that you're dealing with and entering with a builder, and you need somebody that is a professional that understands the contracts and makes sure that your interests are being represented and met to the utmost ability, because there are some unscrupulous builders out there. Not all of them, certainly. There are some very, very good builders out there as well, but you just want to make sure that you are represented in the transaction by somebody that has your best interests at heart and is working for you directly, not for the builder. You don't want to get taken advantage of. So that's the first thing I would suggest. The other thing, or another thing to consider is when you're buying an existing home, typically, that owner may have been in the property for a while, so could be many years, and what they owe on the home versus what its current market value is, there can be quite a difference. That's called equity in the property. And because of that equity, it may give some more room for negotiating the price or other things within the transaction that may not be available with a new build. Even though you may have to make changes to the property or do things to it that you wouldn't have to do on a new construction, you may have the potential there to get a better price point. And typically you will find that market values on existing homes are a little bit less than the current price of new construction. And really that's because the builders are dealing with, a fixed level of materials costs and labor costs, and all that gets added in, and then they have their, their markup that they have to make profit and stay in business. um, and of course, as the prices of materials and labor and all that increases, they have to increase their price as well. And so there's typically a pretty small margin and not a whole lot of negotiating that goes on as far as the price is concerned for new construction. Now you can, a lot of times with builders maybe negotiate some of the upgrades, countertops, flooring, paint colors, um, cabinets, things like that in the home. Um, and some of those may cost a premium. Some of them, maybe you can negotiate, but typically the negotiating level in the price of a new construction versus the negotiation that might be available in a existing home is going to be less. Um, you also have to consider timelines. So in a existing home, even though you may have to look for a while to find what it is that you really want, we are in a seller's market, so inventory is low, and sometimes it can be a little bit difficult finding exactly what works for you in an existing home. Um, with a builder, you may be able to get what you want, but it may not be in the timeline that you would want it. Um, One of the issues that new builders are dealing with is getting subcontractors, because there's so much construction going on in Dallas Fort Worth right now. Finding all of the subcontractors that they have to hire and getting them in at the right time is kind of difficult at times. So the electricians, the plumbers, the framers, the roofers, the drywall guys, the painters, everybody that they have to line up to get a project to completion, they have to hire, and they're in short supply. Not just because of all the new builds that are going on in Dallas Fort Worth, but also because of here in Texas with Hurricane Harvey down in the Houston area. A lot of those subcontractors have gone down there because demand is even higher in that area. So we've lost some of them. So you do have to consider that even though the builder may give you a timeline and say it can be done in a month or 2 months or whatever, depending on what stage it currently is, you might you just have to consider that it could take longer. I had some good friends that bought a new construction a little bit ago, and they they were selling their current house, and they knew they were going to have to move into a short-term lease situation, but and it wasn't ideal for their family, but they knew they had to do it because it was going to take a little while to have the construction completed, but it ended up taking way longer, many months longer than they had originally thought. So just you want to keep that in mind. With an existing home, you can possibly get in much quicker, depending on if the property is vacant or not, or maybe you give a short-term lease back to give, after closing, the seller's time to pack up and get moved out or whatever. But usually you can get into, have a better idea of when you can get into the property and move in versus a new construction. And I think the last thing I would say is just make sure, if you're looking at a builder, that they have a good reputation, they do give a very quality product, because there are builders out there that um, kind of cut corners on materials, labor, that sort of thing, to try to make better margins. The last thing you want to do is buy a new construction that ends up having multiple issues over time because of poor construction quality. And certainly a realtor, an agent, can help you in choosing a good quality, well, high reputable builder to work with in buying a new construction. But those are just some of my thoughts on, buying new versus existing. If you have questions or comments or whatever, feel free to respond. If you have other questions you'd like me to address, let me know those too, and I'll be happy to address them in a future episode. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.